Hi, this is Wim from the Brand Recovery Series. Today I have the honor to chat with Dan Calladine. Dan is the global head of media futures at Dentsu. We're going to talk about which brands did well in this first phase of the crisis. He has some wonderful examples that few people outside of the UK know about. Then we're going to talk about the next phase for brands, why it is essential to keep advertising, and 3 changes in consumer behavior that, in Dan's opinion, will stay with us. Hi, Dan. Welcome to the Brand Recovery Series.
Hello.
We're going to talk about a few things. Let's start with which brands, in your opinion, did well during this first phase of the crisis.
Quite a lot of brands have done a good job. I think it's really hard for brands to know what to do because it's very unprecedented. I think we started off by thinking it's going to be a bit like the financial crisis, and then obviously we realized it was going to be much bigger than that because it would have a much greater impact on most people. I think there are some cases where international and national brands have done good things around their communication. So you think of things like the Nike advert where they said, if you ever wanted to be a star on the biggest stage, now you can, and just encourage people to stay at home and post things on social media and stuff rather than going out. I think so. I think Nike's done very good. I find the hospitality industry really interesting. So food and drink. And it's really economics at the purest level. It's sort of branding at the purest level. It's sales at the purest level. And what some of these people have done, I think, is really good because many of these companies are very young. There's been a real explosion in these sorts of companies in the UK over the last 10 years or so, and a lot of them have very visible leaders who are still in the business, leaders who you'll still meet if you go there to some of these restaurants and some of these bars and things. And so there's some really good examples of people like that who've done things. And I think you probably must get Brewdog. So Brewdog is quite a global brand now, and the 2 guys who run that are very public and very opinionated, particularly a guy called James Watt, and they came out pretty early on and said, firstly, we're going to start making sanitizers. So they turned over some of their bottling plants to making sanitizer and then delivering this free of charge. They then said, because our bars aren't open, we have all these lorries that aren't doing anything, so we're going to use these to deliver things for people. So they were doing free deliveries to people. They've done things like online pub sessions. So every week you've got the Brewdog Arms where they, where basically you sort of have an hour or so having a drink with other people, and they do Q&A sessions and things like that. Also, it must be noted that it's a really good data collection exercise, because if you want to take part in something like that, you have to register with your email address so they can send you a link, and so you're opting into all sorts of things when you do that. And then also what they've done is the two leaders, the 2 founders, have basically said, we're not taking a salary this year. So they, and they're trying to do everything they can to keep their business going. So I think they've had a really good response to it in lots of different ways, both in communication, but also in terms of the way they've been acting and the way they've been amplifying that. But there've also been some really good examples in terms of things like restaurants. So I think a lot of restaurants have been, just not known how to react to it. And what we've started to see as time has gone on is people saying, well, actually, we can still make things in our kitchens because there's only 2 of us, and we can socially distance while we make things, and then we can deliver things and we can leave things on people's doorsteps. There's a couple of relatively recently started companies in London which both have chains of about 10 restaurants, or sort of 10 to 20 restaurants. One is a pizza restaurant called Pizza Pilgrims, and they've produced a thing called Pizza in the Post, where instead of just giving you a pizza delivery, they have a really nicely packaged box that I think costs about £15, and it's all the ingredients you need to make what they call a frying pan pizza. And so you get this box through the post. It's sort of bigger than a standard pizza delivery box. And then you go through the whole thing of making the pizza yourself. You bake it inside a frying pan. It looks really good. And then they give you all these different pots of toppings and things like that you could put onto it. They started doing that through Deliveroo, and now they're doing that as a national delivery postal thing. They can only make 50 units. They can only make 50 units a day, and these are just selling out immediately. So that's pizzas. There's another place that does burgers called Honest Burger, and what they've started to do initially as a charity fundraising thing is to give you the chance to make their burgers at home. So essentially, they give you the patties, they give you the buns, they give you the sauces. And again, they were selling 50 sets a day, and these were selling out immediately and crashing the website and things like that. So the way these brands, which aren't internationally known at all, but the way these brands have pivoted, I think, is fantastic, because they've realized that people love their brand. People can't go out to eat in their stores. They don't want to open the restaurants. They don't necessarily want to do delivery because it's quite difficult. But to differentiate themselves and to allow their customers to still experience the brand, they've created these new products. And I think those are fantastic examples. And as these ones become more famous, then more chefs in London are starting to think, well, what can we do? And they're working on packaging and things like that. I think the next stage for brands is going to be quite a practical one about how you do actually move to the next stage, how you do move out of isolation, how you do move out of quarantine, when their shops are going to be reopening, how they're going to reopen the shops, because everybody's going to come back to a situation where everyone has had almost zero market share for the last month or so. And then what do you do? And maybe some of your competitors have had to close shops, or maybe some of your competitors have disappeared altogether. So I think the advertising will change, and the advertising will become, I think, the route for the next stage of the communication will, I think, start to become more apparent, because it will be much more practical in terms of this is what we're doing as a brand and stuff. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. There was an advert in the Financial Times at the weekend from the IPA, and I think the strapline was something like, "When the world goes quiet, your voice sounds louder." And it was just to say, this is not the time that you should be cancelling all advertising activity. This is not the time you should be hibernating. This is a time when you should be trying to work out what this means for your business. And you should have you should keep a relationship with your consumers, with your audience, as much as possible. Again, going back to the things I've seen from the hospitality industry in the UK, what is really interesting is that the best brands are still really active on social media. In a recession, and this is sort of quite classical economic theory, when people don't have much money, they know that they want to buy something that they know is good. So quite often, if people have less money, they will go for they'll go for the famous brands. They won't buy the cheaper, own label, unheard of tin of baked beans, for example. They'll buy the Heinz baked beans because they'll know that they can only afford one tin of baked beans, so they want to buy the one that they know is guaranteed to be good. So in that sort of situation, then it could possibly be counterproductive for mass price cutting by some of the bigger brands, because people, I think, will sort of gravitate towards quality and gravitate towards things that they know. I think a few things will stay. I think you can sort of see a ratchet effect. We've seen this with things like Netflix, where once people try subscription VOD, they think, I'd never realized how easy it was. I'd never realized how much stuff there was there, how much good stuff, how easy it is to find stuff, how, there's a button just to avoid watching the credits every time. So you just, there's a button that just says, click here if you don't want to watch the next episode immediately. And then, click here if you want to not watch the 1 minute title sequence every time, and things like that. So I think things like Netflix are quite an obvious ratchet, and it was really interesting with their results coming out a couple of days ago that they've added something like 16 million, which is almost a 10% growth within one quarter, and it's easy to see why they've done that. But I think there's a few other things that will also be like that, and I think one of these is things like Teams and Zoom and video calls, whether it be with colleagues like I'm talking to you today, or whether it be with people in families. And one of my friends is from Taiwan, and it always used to amuse me that they did like a weekly conference call for the whole family, and they did it on I think they did it on WeChat, and they were all sort of just sort of taking part, but there was an hour set apart every week that they would do this thing. But me and my family are now doing it because my parents are self-isolating, my brother and his wife are self-isolating, my sister lives in Germany, and so every Sunday we're coming together as a family for about an hour or so and having a video call, and it's great. So I think things like that will continue. And then third thing I think is that I think things like esports are having a moment a bit like Netflix, in that the system worked really well. The system was really robust. The people who used Twitch really enjoyed it. But for a lot of other people, it was much more easy just to turn on the TV and watch a football match. And also, something that they paid £50 a month to subscribe to. So they felt, obviously it was going to be their first choice of what to watch. But now that they've discovered Twitch, and now that they've discovered people playing games on this, and that it's very easy to play games yourself and also playing multiplayer games with friends, I think that is also a behavior that will continue.